And when your limbs feel adrenaline and sleep is more elusive than the day, don't waste the rapid eye movements. You spent hours wishing she were awake. Die every night, reborn every day. Die every night, wishing she were awake.
It's the Lyrical Wax. The Lyrical Wax.
Those are the lyrics of Jake Moose of Melbourne band INDTIKO. A very cool band with a very cool original name. Listen to the whole podcast and you'll actually find out what the name means. It's actually super cool and super interesting. My name is PurpleZain. I'm a singer, songwriter myself. Don't really do much of the acoustic guitar stuff. That would annoy the hell out of everyone. But I am a singer and I am a songwriter and I am a producer and a musician. But I'm also a psychologist who runs Chill Psychology out of Tweed Heads. This is the Lyrical Wax podcast where I combine my love of lyrics and music with a little bit of psychology know-how to analyze songwriters' lyrics and get a feel for what was really going on for them when they wrote the song. Lyrical Wax Podcast, INDTIKO edition. Let's go. Jake Moose, my man, how are you?
I'm all right, Zane. What's going on?
I'm just enjoying living my best life up here in the Tweed. Doing the Lyrical Wax podcast this evening. Finally got you on board. It was a little bit getting organised, but here we are. You're my first ever Victorian guest, so I'm actually very, very happy to have you on board today.
Yep, I'm all rugged up. We're already fucking 6 degrees every night.
Okay, these don't come out live. There's a little bit of delay on them. We're coming to the end of May, so I'm wearing a jacket if it makes you feel any better. It's probably about 18 degrees outside, so I've had to rug up with my Adidas jacket. So yeah, it gets a little bit chilly.
No, it doesn't.
A bit chilly up here.
It doesn't make me feel better at all.
Well, hopefully your ears are warm with those headphones on, at the very least. Okay, cool. All right, so the Lyrical Wax podcast, we're going to have a look into your lyrics of INDTIKO. So I do know what it means now, but maybe you wouldn't mind telling everyone what it means. And also, are you the person that came up with the band name?
Yeah, that's me. INDTIKO stands for I'm Not Dead That I Know Of. And that was because I tried to be in a couple of bands when I was younger that didn't last very long, and I was a bit half-assed about it, which is fair enough. And then I gave it away for a long time, maybe a decade plus, because I was getting frustrated with my own limitations and I wasn't putting in enough to make it sound semi-decent. So I came back to it 10 to 15 years later after playing a shitload of poker, and I thought I had all the reasons to not want to do it. I'm like, well, it's too late. I'm finished. I'm too old. And then I'm like, well, I'm not fucking dead yet. So that was pretty much, that's how it came about.
Yeah. So again, it is actually quite a cool name once you work out, and it probably explains why it's spelled as capital letters too, not as little letters. So because it's an what's the word? Anagram, abbreviation. I don't know. I'll have to
acronym.
Look it up.
Acronym.
Thank you.
Acronym.
Thank you. I do try and act intelligent on this, but I'd forgotten an acronym. So yes, acronym. Excellent. Alrighty.
It was actually,
cool, man.
It wasn't capitalised until a few years ago.
Oh, okay. Well, no, the capitalised is good. It helps put things in context. So yeah, keep the capitals. You're not going to now extend it with dots in between all the letters as well, though, or you're going to not go that far?
No. Happy with this.
Okay, cool. All righty, Jake. So, done a few of these podcasts now, and they are about getting into your lyrics and stuff. But it always helps to put things in perspective a little bit about the singer's history, a little bit about their past, a little bit about their experiences with music and songwriting and so on. So, I'll maybe throw a bit of a broad question at you. you're from Victoria, so, but maybe a little bit about, sort of where you grew up, and a little bit about maybe, what your sort of, your first introduction to music, and, you're sort of the first singers, songwriters that you really liked. Maybe give us a little bit of a spiel on that.
Yeah, no worries. Born in Sydney, Darlinghurst, and moved here when we were very young with my mum, like 1 or something. So pretty much always been in bloody cold Melbourne, Victoria since, except for a couple of years in my 20s. I went back to Sydney for a while, had a poke around Bondi, slept on some couches, and came back with no money. But the first introduction to music, I reckon I can vividly remember the year 1986. Makes me 10 years of age, and the cassettes that I acquired around that time were Whispering Jack by John Farnham, the Bangles, and so Wah Wah Nee, the Australian band. So a mainstream, very mainstream start to things, but really started loving it from 10 onwards. I would watch that show, I don't know if you used to get it, Sounds, in the morning, and they'd have like one song. Actually, it wasn't Sounds itself, but they'd have one song on, and like In Excess, Burn For You, things like that. So that's where I start getting into music around that era, 85, 86.
Yeah, so I think every single Australian of our age, Whispering Jack was, the beginning of your real love of music, I suppose it's fair to say. I saw the Bangles live actually at in like 2003 maybe at Twin Towns here at Tweed, and that's actually a bit of that was a great gig, and I still claim it to this day. Yeah, I still claim that I saw the Bangles not in their heyday of like the 80s, early 90s, but I'm very proud of the fact that I saw the Bangles. I saw the Bangles live. So it's funny though too, isn't it? Because there's that introduction to music that's always quite pop mainstream when you're that sort of age. But then you started getting a little bit more into the alternative stuff because, we're going to get a bit into your style of music with this post-punk. But when did it sort of change from, you sort of Whispering Jack into some more underground stuff, but your sound's probably a little bit more, based on?
Yeah, I think you get influenced by people at high school, don't you, your friends? So then the friends start introducing like Megadeth's Rust in Peace and Metallica's And Justice for All. So then it starts veering off from there, where you start going down that path. And then I think after a few years of that or whatever, then you start looking down your nose at all the mainstream stuff. And it actually takes you a long time to go back there and accept that some of these mainstream songs were still really good and you don't have to be embarrassed to like them. So
yeah, you're talking to someone who was a big Prince fan from a young age, and there was a lot of Metallica and Megadeth when I was young. So yeah, I definitely copped a lot of grief for being a Prince fan when I was young. But now heaps of my friends love Prince, and no one gives me shit about it anymore. So yeah, I can definitely relate to that.
Well, he's like he's not that embarrassing though. Like if you said the Bangles, you're going to get shit. I don't think that many people who actually enjoy music should be giving you a lot of shit for Prince. Not at this age, anyway.
No, definitely not at this age. But again, when you're sort of 10, 11, 12 and all your mates are headbangers and, you're liking all this sort of the funky groovy stuff. It's a funny place to be. But I wore it on my sleeve. I just loved him so much. I just wanted to shout it out to the world. So be it. Alrighty.
What were your favourites?
Well, probably
Sign of the Times.
Sign of the Times was a little bit before I sort of was old enough to get into music other than Whispering Jack. But Bat Dance was probably the first Prince song I ever heard that I thought was sick, and I think that was like maybe 89. I think Bat Dance came out, or 1990 from the famous Batman movie. But then the album that just totally hooked me and that I absolutely loved was Diamonds and Pearls, with like Cream and Diamonds and Pearls. And then after that, I was just, I was hooked. There was no turning back. Yes.
I can hear the influence in your songs.
Yeah, yeah. Alrighty, so we are mates, and I know a little bit about your music journey and stuff, but I think you're one of the sort of few musos that I've done of this. You weren't really sort of playing in music when you were young, were you? You actually said before you had a couple of goes at being in bands, but when was it when you had your first sort of go at songwriting, being in bands, was it always as a singer? Maybe did you learn a bit of guitar in high school, or maybe tell everyone a little bit of that when you first started thinking, I might give this band stuff a go.
Yeah, like I mentioned previously, I had a little patch there for a few years that I was trying to do a little bit of singing and a small amount of songwriting, and played a couple gigs in a garage and a battle of the bands and stuff like that. But and then I actually got pretty sick with physically with Crohn's disease, and as I said, I also got frustrated by my own limitations, because to me, music is you can do it for fun and for a hobby, but in order to do it to a level where you feel like you don't embarrass yourself, you've actually got to put in a little bit. And, I would do it on pure energy and aggression, pretty much, not so much melody or skills. And, you can get away with it, but you can also frustrate yourself because you sort of think maybe you can be a bit better than this. And then that takes a bit of effort. So you get to a crossroads where I just thought, I'm frustrating myself with this. I'm not going to put in the effort required to get to a decent level. So then I just shelved it for a whole bunch of years.
Okay, so again, it's a little bit different than the other people I talked to years ago. Oh, I just enjoyed it. I loved it. I was passionate. I knew I was bad. We weren't that good, but we just did it and kept going. And they kept going with it. Where for yourself, you consider yourself someone who likes to put a lot of pressure on themselves. You're a bit of an all or nothing sort of person, where if I can't do it, great, I don't want to do it. Is that sort of, or at that age, was that you probably more so than now, or are you still like that?
Yes and no. I'm highly competitive and I want to do it very well. So maybe it's more about getting more frustrated than I need to be, playing non-competitive tennis, but getting so frustrated that I throw my racket over the fence. Not because I'm trying to be pro, just the competitive nature lends itself to going, well, I feel like I should be at this level, but I'm only at this level. And how much effort is it going to take to get to that next level? And then working out that, I did a couple singing lessons and I didn't want to do scales, which I'm sure is not an uncommon thing for vocalists. So I just felt like, fuck this. So, I just want to be able to do it and just, not try too hard. So I was lazy as part of it. And again, physically got sick for a while, for a bunch of years. I was quite sick from probably 22 to 25, really sick. So that didn't help at all. So competitive nature, but then in the end, just trying to accept my limitations with it and go and just, I didn't come back to it until I thought, this has been a very slow journey in the last 8 years or whatever it is since I initially started INDTIKO as a solo project. And as you know, you can be learning how to be a musician for your whole life. So it's still slow, but I was willing to put in more effort this time around. And the one thing that I had, the one advantage that I had was because I'd sort of done some stand-up comedy and sort of developed a little bit more confidence over the years, I didn't feel like I had any fears about going back on stage, which some people would have. So that made it less daunting.
Okay, so as I said, Jake, I've known you for a while and stuff, and I can't recall you telling me you did a bit of stand-up comedy for a while there. You say you're trying to do the band thing.
You know what would have been
20s.
funnier?
What's that?
I was going to say, I thought you were going to say, I've known you for a long time, Jake, and I don't ever recall you being funny.
Well, that's why you're a stand-up comic and I wasn't, because that's actually a very funny comment where I missed the opportunity to say a funny comment. I want to actually though ask you a little bit about this. So you were doing you had to go out doing a bit of music in that sort of early 20s. You got a bit sick for a while and so on. So when did the stand-up? What years were we sort of doing stand-up comedy, and what was the motivation, or where that come from? Rather than maybe having another go at doing bands again, but to do stand-up comedy. And how long did you do that for? And give us a little bit about that, because that's actually quite interesting.
Yeah, it wasn't a big stretch. It was more like, a year or so of it. Largely wanting to come out of my shell. And it was mostly when I was living in Sydney and I was coming out of my shell. I was partying as well. So this did contribute to some of my stand-up comedy routines. It contributed to a lot of them. Most of them were based on drugs, let's face it. Most of the sketches and jokes and stuff like that. But I did this opening slot for this R&B dude at one of the venues in Sydney, Fox Studios it was, that area. And a few open mics and stuff. So it wasn't exactly a career, but also again, I came to realise that it is a lot of preparation. In order to deliver a good stand-up routine, you need to go over it. You need to work out the cadence, the speed, the sound, how people are reacting to it, do it to test audiences, and obviously continue to write material constantly and revise it and all of that. So again, I accepted my limitations and thought, I could do this, but I'm not willing to put in that much effort to keep going. So I still wouldn't mind revisiting it to some extent, but again, the effort is high. You need a lot of effort.
Yeah. Okay. So then the last question I want to ask about your sort of journey to where you are right now is that with INDTIKO, we sort of talked about it, just as mates having a chat, that, it is hard to sort of get to the top, and, the journey to actually being a successful musician is very, very difficult. But you've been doing INDTIKO for 8 years, and you and me talk about it, and you actually say it more than me, that, this is just something we're doing for fun and stuff. So what was the decision to go, or what led to you going, well, I just want to do this at where I'm at and not be so, put so much pressure on myself and be so aggressive and competitive with it? And, what do you think changed in your life to just sort of make music in a not so intensely serious, professionally driven, or professionally chasing way?
I think I can answer that, actually. It's basically revolves around, when I sort of put it to one side in regards to making it when I was younger, not making it as in a successful musician, but just creating it. I had a bit of a chip on my shoulder where I didn't really enjoy listening to music much anymore, because I thought, I can still do better than them, but I wasn't doing it. So I came back to it later, and I'm like, so I still think that I can do this. And now, so it's still a competitive thing that I still think this song's average and this song's average, I can do better than that. So there's still a competitive element to it, but also you got to add some reality. And maybe when I first came back to it and I put our first song, or INDTIKO's first song out, there's always a little bit of naivety or delusion, maybe thinking, well, this song's pretty good, maybe it'll take off. And then you realise that it probably won't, because there's a million songs coming out every day, and, you need so much marketing and promotion and all of that, and luck and timing. So, so there's still a competitive element, but over time, you just got to add in the reality of the situation and acceptance of, this is not your professional career. So just try and make it as fun as possible. And I still think music's an extremely hard hobby, as I mentioned earlier, because in order to do it to a reasonable level, you still got to put in time and effort. And even though you're not taking it seriously to the extent of being a professional musician, you've still got to put in a reasonable amount of time and effort to work on your craft or engage with your bandmates and, you know, work on songs together and stuff like that. So, you know, being a bit older, slightly more mature, I guess, and a bit healthier than I was in those days. There's a combination of factors where you can have a bit of a crack. And it also coincides with that I'm not dead that I know of. I'm not dead yet. I'm like, well, I can do this before I get too old and have a crack.
Yeah, no, okay. Yeah, no.
Reverse midlife crisis.
Yeah, I think so. Better, it's cheaper than buying a Porsche, isn't it? I suppose. Alrighty, cool. It's interesting hearing this little bit of comedy. You do have a good sense of humor. You and me do have a good laugh and stuff. And there's sort of a we're about to get into the lyrics part of it now. There is a kind of a there is a sort of comical social commentary in your lyrics, but not. It's not like Weird Al Yankovic sort of stuff by any sort of stretch, but I can sort of I can get this sort of comical social commentary to a certain degree out of it. Even like the title of the first song we're going to get into, that's actually about to become the single. I'd like to. So we're recording this at the end of May, but this will probably come out around the launch of your new single in June. I'll give you a chance at the end to plug the dates and the venue and everything. But the first song we're going to go with is Lockdown Lovers. All right, so this would actually make a little bit of a black comedy.
Unfortunately, that's probably.
Yeah. Are you going?
Yeah, I was gonna say. Unfortunately, that's probably too common a title for that period of time now, and. Probably there's been a few things that have films and songs and stuff that are called that. So maybe if given an opportunity, I'd call it something else now. But particularly when people don't want to be reminded. Someone said they don't want to be reminded of that period of time, but I pointed out that there's a hell of a lot of stuff about a lot of dark things that people don't want to be reminded of. So yeah, I would probably rename it if I had an opportunity just because, yeah.
Yeah, because I mean that's well now this podcast is about sort of exploring lyrics and their true meaning, but yeah, and some people I interview it's super just brutally obvious what they're talking about. Some people not so much, but when we're talking about Lockdown Lovers, the timing of it is obvious, but there's still some lyrics in here that I think are quite interesting. And I will just actually say what's the point I didn't get through before. I could actually see this as like maybe a little a bit of a black comedy sort of play, maybe in some little art house theatre somewhere. I could actually see it being acted out and so on. So
sounds good.
Yeah, especially now that you said you did a little bit of stand up, but it's a 3-minute song, not an 80-minute indie play. But let's get into it, Lockdown Love is about to be your first single coming out in June. I'm going to just give the lyrics a bit of a spiel. I'm going to give a little bit of my interpretation or a little bit of my view on it, and then I'm going to sort of maybe hand it over to you to expand on what you're comfortable expanding on in this lyrical content. Okay, so here we go. Lockdown lovers, conversation takes a turn for the worse. Ain't got nothing in common but a shared burden of the world. So again, we already spoke about the title Lockdown Lovers, but I want to just get into the next line, the next stanza, and then maybe open it up to you a little bit. Weighed down heavily by the crowded house in her head, rapid transformation, I see she quickly gets dressed. So the question, I suppose, that makes this a Lyrical Wax podcast question is obviously the timing is when the COVID lockdowns are on, but I would like to know, and you can go specific into detail as much as you would like. That's fine. I know you don't have to say anything you don't want to say, but the question is super obvious. Who is this lover? Where were you guys living together time and then you got stuck together because you weren't allowed to leave the house? Or was it just sort of, were you breaking the rules of the Victorian lockdowns And like, how did you sort of get stuck with her? Is this a generalization? Is this a real person? I mean, obviously the relationship sort of, you got stuck together, you were just locked in and you couldn't get away from each other, but then you sort of did. But like, yeah, the question is, you know, who is this person? How much of this person you're really happy to talk about in this public forum? So I'm going to throw it over to you to answer that as best as you can.
Yeah, names have been protected. Names have been changed to protect the innocent.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're good questions. I think very, very, very good questions, Zane. But I think part of the reason why they're such good questions is because having lived in Melbourne in lockdowns as in comparison to Queensland or the border of New South Wales even is a very massive difference in this instance, where as a single person, you know, with no one else in the house, and this person as well living by themselves in a separate residence, you're getting to spend a hell of a lot of time with yourself. And there was a rule that you could see an intimate partner. So unless there was a time where there was a curfew as well, there was a curfew. So we had it, as most people are aware, as bad as anywhere in the world as far as the period of lockdown goes. And, you know, so we met, I think, probably at the start of COVID, just before everything started getting locked down properly, and had a relationship of sorts for, let's call it a year. And it wasn't particularly volatile or anything like that, but, you know, it wasn't super serious, but it was definitely meaningful. And in the end, we disagreed on a few of the attitudes around COVID and lockdowns, and what she thought about COVID and lockdowns and the true reality of it were quite different to me, even though my attitude was shifting from month to month, as a lot of people's would have been. You know, we start out and we think, oh, who gives a shit about this? And then for a while it's on the news every day and they're reporting numbers and you start thinking it's really serious. And then later you start potting holes in some of the situations. You know, why are they saying we can do this but can't do that? It makes no sense. Like, you know, you can go to the supermarket and congregate with everyone there, but you can't see a friend for a few minutes, or you can't be on a park bench, or whatever bullshit that they were doing, which was, in retrospect, clearly taking it too far. So you had an environment where you had people with differing points of view and getting frustrated with each other, you know, not leaving the house or having the capacity to leave the house. And it was creating an environment where a lot of people weren't getting along with people based on just the whole scenario. So it was a very difficult time for a lot of people, and obviously businesses getting shut down and people being separated and everything like that. So a lot of us are well aware of it. But yeah, it is an interesting comparison in regards to being in a different state in the same country and having very little repercussions in comparison.
Yeah, that's totally fair enough. You know, like it's obviously a lot better up here. Everyone knows how much lockdown was happening in Victoria. And I think it's good to, you know, we'd probably rather than, and I know you're not wanting, you know, we're not going to go there. You're not giving the impression you want to go there. There's obviously some people held some very extreme opposing opinions of what happened. But I think how you're saying it, in a way, this is kind of a commentary where like it sort of didn't, what the opinions that you had were opposite, but it's not about taking side. Like me as the listener or hearing you talk about taking side over who was right or wrong. It's just that you're only allowed to hang out with one person who's like, you know, an intimate partner. But then as time goes on, that one person you're allowed to hang out with is just like, you're just sort of growing apart in your beliefs and attitudes, and you can't really hang with anyone else. So that's actually what this is more of a commentary about, isn't it? You know, how much it's just strain it put on the relationships, regardless of which side you believe with. You know, that's sort of what this is about, isn't it? You know.
Well, it's definitely additional frustration, and I think you don't need additional frustrations in a relationship for it to get a bit shaky, do you? Anyone's relationship can get a bit shaky with other things, and we had this event regardless of your opinion on it, it was a significant event that had a significant impact on our lives, and that's adding fuel to the fire of onto any other issues that you may have with each other, just in a natural relationship situation. So that's how it just assists it to deteriorate, and particularly when one person is actually taking the situation, it's like it's affecting them more. Like I was affected by it, but not as much as my partner here. She was more affected by everything that went along with it, and the points of view that she took without a commentary on whether they're good, bad, justified, whatever, that doesn't matter. But the points of view she did take, it's like she took the whole weight of the world on her shoulders, as well as being opposing to a lot of my thoughts. So that means that person is really struggling to deal with the situation, and it's understandable. So, yeah.
Yeah, and there's a line here, and it's, to be honest, there's a little bit of a vein running through your lyrics, but we won't get into too much. But the lyrics are here, and I'm here to sort of review them with you. Got to go inhale some fumes, burn the reaches of her mind. She says we're all brainwashed, sleepwalking zombies. Ain't no coming back from it this time. So I probably. Well, like inhale some fumes. We're probably talking about some drug or whatnot. You don't have to throw her under the bus and say like how if she was like super screwed up on drugs or whatnot.
Just pot. No, just pot. No, that's all. No big deal.
Okay. Oh, that's good. Yeah. So no, you're not really throwing someone on the bus.
Just a good old fashioned pot. Yeah.
Yeah. That's okay. So you're not you pulled her out from under the bus because everyone's just assuming the worst with that. Yeah, but there's this line that the line. Ain't no coming back from it this time. So, that can be read a few ways. When I initially read it, it's just like because the relationship's, or is it just because she's just so, the relationship's just getting worse and worse and worse. But also, is it because your opinions are just growing so far apart? But then I thought it'd be a little comment here. It's a question. Ain't no coming back from this time. Sometimes when you've got a partner who's your lockdown lover, like your lover, but sometimes it's like the sex is just really, really, really good, and even though you're disagreeing, it's the only person you can sort of hang out with. It's like, oh God, the sex is just so good that I can't have sex with anyone else. So is it like, oh, I'm going to you just sort of keep going back? Maybe that famous Seinfeld episode where he's playing chess, the penis head and the brain head are playing chess against each other. Is that something to do with it? 'Cause I just thought I'd have to ask because it's just there. I thought, fuck it, I'll ask you anyway. Is there anything like that to do with it?
Well, what I like about lyrics is obviously, and you do as well, is how they're so open to interpretation. And as you were sitting there reciting all the possibilities, I thought, no, it's none of those.
Well, give it. What is it then?
I mean, I think
about your lyrics.
Well, the last line in that, what is classed as the chorus and the preceding lines that you quoted, it's actually continuing on from the philosophy of the previous lines, which is, going and hailing some fumes, burn the reaches of her mind. Okay, that stands on its own, but she says we're all brainwashed, sleepwalking zombies is in regards to our adhering to all the COVID restrictions and not speaking out about them. And it is about, vaccines and stuff, and just, so it is a point of view that wasn't happy with the vaccines effectively. And we can't get away from that fact, that that's just the truth. So, we're brainwashed, sleepwalking zombies. And, in retrospect, and I said this the whole time through, we aren't going to know exactly how any of us feel about that period of time until a whole bunch of years later. And what I did think was there was always going to be a massive fallout. And I think we're feeling it, whether it be inflation, people not being able to afford places to live, businesses that are closing, music venues that are going to get screwed and continue to, and the drop-off in attendances and all of that kind of stuff that's going on as a legacy, a big legacy of all of this. So, that continues on later in the song with the, you may not sing, dance, or embrace ever again. And there was something that I read, and it was in Tasmania, and there was basically talking about how laughing actually spreads more particles of COVID. So I could have actually put, no, you may not laugh ever again too. So there was some pretty insane stuff going on that made actually no sense. So that's why I was pivoting my attitude on the whole thing too, because you think it's a medical emergency, but then they're getting carried away with some of the philosophies, like you couldn't dance, like you could go and congregate, but you weren't allowed to dance. Like, seriously, give me a break. I still will never get over that kind of shit. And a lot of people won't.
So that's just before we get into that last stanza, because there's definitely some good stuff there, but is that when she said we're all brainwashed, sleepwalking zombies, is that a quote verbatim? Like, did you literally take her exact words and put it in your song?
No.
Okay, cool.
It's a summary.
Yeah, okay, yeah. No, cool, no worries. I mean, it could have been either, but I thought that's definitely worth asking. So that's actually really cool, though, about the lyrics of this song. So the last stanza, I'll read it out. And no, you may not sing, dance, or embrace ever again. It's the new dawn of romance. Just don't come anywhere near me, my beautiful friend. So I read that originally like this chick's just lost it. And you're like, oh, just cracked. We've just grown so far apart. We just can't take it anymore after being locked down together for a while. But that last phrase then, is that actually more about, it's about the repercussions of the COVID restrictions and everything. Like, you may not sing and dance because, that's right. Like when, you could go to a gig, but you had to sit down. Might not embrace ever again because, not laugh. You might spread the disease. It's a new dawn of romance. So, again, like because of the social distancing and just don't come anywhere near me, my beautiful friend. So again, I read that like, nah, don't come back. I don't want you back. But it's just like, don't come near me. I might get infected by you. Is that sort of what you mean there?
That makes complete sense. But again, that's not what the intention is or what it actually is. But it totally makes sense though. And actually to just note down that I'm still very good friends with this girl, surprisingly, because that was a tough time to be together. So that's good. You can just be on the other side of the fence and you can still move past that, because that's not the defining characteristic. I want to be able to disagree with people. It's having the capacity to move on or apologise about things or know that you've overstepped or whatever. And that's how you make good friends and relationships, not the fact that you're on differing sides of the fence. So in regards to the actual lyric, it's a societal thing, as you know, the may not sing, dance or embrace ever again. The new dawn of romance is basically, yes, about social distancing and how close we can get together and, what you're allowed to do. And the last line, and just don't come anywhere near me, my beautiful friend. Again, it's more generalised than talking about the demise of the relationship.
Okay. Yeah, right. Okay, cool. So I must say too, Jake, it's actually good hearing that from you. What you said then about, a lot of friendships, the people that went to, again, I'm not here to get into comment over who was right and who was wrong on the argument because of each side of the fence. But what I found was super interesting was how there was actually a lot of friendships and family relationships that were destroyed because of being so far, not in agreement to what was going on. So I really wanted to try and maintain with people that I didn't agree with as well, that like there's still, I still like talking to football. I still like talking about football with them. We still like the same type of music. And so we're still friends and family, got a lot in common. So this division around, the what's going on with the COVID stuff, it shouldn't be the defining thing. So it's really good to hear you say that because, a lot of well, not a lot, but yeah, there were relationships that were permanently damaged because of just that one sticking point over what was going on with COVID and not being able to agree on it. So, yeah, definitely good to hear you say that you're still actually friends. Like the way this is written, it's a little bit of drama, and it's it's written in a way that's clickbaity isn't the right word, but it's written in a way that's it's quite really good lyrical imagery, and it sounds like like an explosive end to this sort of relationship. But it's good to hear that the real story, you're still friends with her and stuff, and you get along, and so yeah, that's actually really really good to hear.
Yeah, I mean, COVID, it's just another topic. Like, it was an all-dominating topic, but you can be all consumed about politics, like even American politics. Like, people get all consumed about Trump versus Biden, and I've said this to you before. To me, it just ends up being like a footy match where they're just supporting opposite sides and always championing the side that they like, and that's not the kind of discussions that I want to have with people. Champion your side is fine, but unfortunately, humans are riddled with bias, confirmation bias. All of us have it, but you got to try and have discussions that aren't so much affected by that. And it's not easy, because ultimately you've got to have an opinion. You don't have to, but generally we're going to have an opinion on something that's strongly affecting us, or maybe sometimes it's not even that strongly affecting us. And then we can all get a little bit stuck in our ways. So, yeah, but if I want to have a serious conversation with anyone about any of those kind of topics, I want to feel like we can potentially shift views, because I think a lot of people think that shifting views is an admission of defeat, that as soon as you change your position, you're going to be perceived as stupid. And I don't see it like that. I think, people that are, I don't want to say intelligent, but that are thoughtful is a good word, they're willing to change their views when new information comes in. And that might mean changing your views a whole bunch of times. And that's okay. We're fluid. All we know is that we exist. That's about it. The rest of it is our perception. Let's not get too deep here, but I mean, it is a psychological podcast, isn't it?
Yeah. No. I agree with everything you're saying there. Maybe that's why you and me are mates. But if I could probably just add one last thing. The confirmation bias is such a funny thing, because people who love throwing out a lot of stuff about confirmation bias, you just got confirmation. They're usually experiencing it themselves, aren't they? Quite a lot. So I do always have a little bit of a laugh whenever I see someone online in Facebook or whatever, like rant on about confirmation bias, because it's like, oh, well, there you go. You're probably suffering from it more than anyone. But yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it's like everything. It's all differing degrees.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So look, lockdown lovers again. You are right that it is a subject that it's a little bit. Oh God, thank God it's over. I mean, we all went through it. Everyone went through it different ways and so on. But it is the single. As I wanted to talk about it, and to be honest, it's really good hearing what these lyrics mean, because it's not like it's just looking at the way this sort of affected relationships more so than the right or wrong of it. So it's actually quite a psychological song in a way, but it's not explicitly said. So to hear you talk about it and be really specific about it, it's really good, man. So I think hopefully when people listen to it and hear it, they'll know that it's a little bit more about what it's about, what hopefully will help the song. So yeah, good shit. All right, cool, man.
Thanks. And I don't think right. I wouldn't use right and wrong. I wouldn't use right and wrong just to finish that off. To me, there's no right and wrong about assessing that situation. It was just perceptions. It doesn't matter if you think someone's perception is way off or way different to yours. It's still a perception. It might be potentially considered unreasonable, and maybe you don't feel like it's grounded or it's heavily biased or whatever, but anyway, it's a perception, so there is no right and wrong. Most of the world is in shades of grey. And again, if someone thinks too black and white in any situation, I'm going to struggle to have conversations and may be willing to leave the conversation instead of trying to debate someone who's getting stuck in a black and white zone. That's not how the world works, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I've actually talked a bit about black and white thinking in previous podcasts. It's a real CBT, cognitive behavior therapy, unhelpful thinking style to be so black and white on things. Okay to have your values and have your conviction, but being really black and white, it can lead to lots of issues with things such as anxiety, depression, and anger and emotional dysregulation and so on. So yeah, it's definitely a healthy way to think, to look for the shades of grey. Okay, cool. I want to move on to the next song. This song actually,
I think the most powerful. I was just going to say the most powerful tool we've got in our arsenal, I think, as humans, is shifting perspective, because we can make any situation different if we shift our perspective, even the darkest of times. That doesn't mean it's a tool that's easily used, especially when it is a very dark situation, but it is extremely powerful to shift your perspective in pretty much any situation if it is something that's troubling you.
Yeah, yep, absolutely. 100% agreed. 100% agreed. Okay, but I would like to move on to the next song. This is a very interesting song. It's got a great title. And you talk about perception. Your lyrics are quite about perception. It's got a lot of perception about them, and like observation and so on. So this song, "She Is Art," but is again a great title. But let me read off the first few sort of lines, and I'm going to ask you a question that's going to be pretty kind of similar to the other one. But let me just get started. In this Gothic ballroom stands a lifelike statue, takes a short drag on the avant-garde, hijacks the zeitgeist, steals every new idea, but still you want to touch her. So that's...
I like hearing that.
I could be wrong.
Read out in the Tweed Heads accent.
Yeah, in my native drawl. So in...
Still you want to touch her.
Yeah. So... Okay, I'm going to give my impression. I got a lot wrong in the other song, and I'm glad the stuff I got wrong was wrong, because I sort of went for the easy. But so I'm going to give you my impression of this one, and maybe I get this one wrong too, and that's fine, because I don't get anything right, and that's why I do actually ask you what it's about. But in this Gothic ballroom, so I'll be talking about a band venue, a music venue, and then. It sounds like you've written it about a woman who sings in a band that's very hip and cool, high, but takes a short drag on the avant-garde. It's a sick line. But then it's followed by hijacks the zeitgeist, steals every new idea. But you still want to touch it. But so is this sort of like about a singer of a band though that's sort of maybe ripping off some other cool songs that maybe other people don't know, but because you sort of know what she's getting into? I don't know. I don't really know what's going on, but that's what it sort of sounds like to me. And then so I want to ask you that, and then the next line sort of goes on about I still want to touch it, but I don't want to get into that just yet. So yeah, you don't have to say exactly who it is if you don't want, or if it even is a real person. But maybe just give us a little bit of about the setting up about this person and the song.
Yeah, the Gothic ballroom actually came from when I was reading about The Unforgettable Fire by U2, which is to me one of their greatest albums, and the song itself is a fantastic song. And I think the recording of it was in some kind of ballroom, and that's where Gothic ballroom came from. And then the concept of the song came out, and it is not about a specific person. It is a concept of, obviously someone that you're strongly attracted to, that can take down all of music and all of creativity, but you're still attracted to them. And hijack the zeitgeist, take over everything. And yeah, so that's roughly the translation of those lines. So
Okay.
this is definitely not specific.
Okay, and that's cool. Like I said, whenever like I get these lyrics, half of them are specific and half of them are just more about a concept of a person. So that's like totally fine. But so did I read that wrong? Like you wrote hijacks the zeitgeist, steals every new idea. So I sort of read that as like maybe a little bit of a dig at someone. But are you sort of saying this sort of omnipresent person that's just so capable of taking all the good and ideas of music and just being able to expunge it themselves? Is that sort of what you mean by that more so?
Yeah, I think just a really powerful creature, in this instance, effectively a female, and that could be so creative and attractive and so brilliant as to steal the entire zeitgeist, and you're left with absolutely nothing, but you're still keen on her.
Yeah, okay. So the real I don't know what's what's the Venus de Milo?
A muse, a bit like a muse,
Yeah,
but
the
she
muse.
takes everything. No, just a muse that takes everything from you, and so yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so okay, that's cool too, because like again, I sort of maybe misinterpret a little bit, but how you explain that, it definitely makes sense. In this Gothic ballroom stands a lifelike statue, takes a short drag on the avant-garde, hijacks the zeitgeist, steals every new idea, but you still want to touch her. But you'll set yourself alight if you forget where the boundaries burn. So is that a little bit about like she's just too good, like she's just a level above me that it's just beyond what me as a mere mortal is capable of approaching and being near?
Yeah, that's reasonable. I think any time where we've got someone who would be that attractive to us, it's going to be a dangerous thing to get yourself involved with. So yeah, that's reasonable.
Well, I'll take reasonable. So what if she stole every note that's ever to be played and no one else was able to play a note ever again? Right. So see again, like I do apologize, Jay, because you've written this great ode to like an omnipresent V, but I was taking it a little bit too literal, and I thought that line was more about she's probably ripped off some stuff, but will shut down anyone who's tries to accuse her of ripping anything off. But yeah, again, you're just saying it like she's just so omnipresent and she's just taken all this music and she's just made it so wonderful that it's the end. She's closed it down,
Yeah, she's destroyed society like COVID lockdowns.
Yeah, they're probably a bit more of a better way to go than through like some respiratory disease. Okay, so when these songs aren't
Yes.
about specific people, what you said this was by the Gothic ballroom term was from U2, but the concept of this this omnipresent woman, where'd you sort of pull this character from?
I think there's sort of bits and pieces of everything in there, isn't there? Like I think Stan's a lifelike statue was just I think seeing a random woman outside one day and she was smoking a cigarette and it looks like a statue to me, and she's not taking a drag on the avant-garde is a hell of a lot more beautifully lyrical than just saying a smoke or something. So
ripping a fag.
so yeah, so it's bits and pieces, and then you've smashing a honger.
Yeah. Out on the
And
public,
you've
out in
got,
front of it at Brunswick Street, ripping a honger, yeah.
That's right. And then you've got the concept of that like mythical creature that's obviously strongly desired in a musical term. Like, I think as a guy, and this works both ways, but speaking from a male perspective, if you see a female on stage and you think that she's a decent musician, then that's going to add an extra layer of sex appeal to that person, and obviously it works both ways. So, when we're into music, when you see someone else from either side of the fence that's doing something that you think's interesting or intriguing or talented or whatever the case may be, then there's going to be an attraction there.
Yeah, it is. Art is funny like that, isn't it? You might. I remember once. This is going back quite a few years. We were just at a party. There's a lot of a bit younger. So everyone was a lot more good looking than what we are now. And there was this girl. She people
Speak
were
for
just
yourself.
sort of. But she, she was just a good looking girl. There's lots of good looking people at the party. But then there was a bit of an acoustic guitar session going on, and she didn't all have a go. And you sort of, and I feel bad for saying this, but I am a human being, and I was thinking, oh yeah, this will be interesting. Let's see how this girl goes. And she sung this song, and I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was an original or whatnot, but she had this incredibly original style. I suppose you relate it to Kate Bush. It was a bit operatic and a bit kooky and a bit alternative, and I just had to fully double take, and it was almost like the cartoons where the eyes go, what is going on here? And it just it just struck me so hard, she pulled out this song on an acoustic guitar. So, if someone has that sort of artistic merit to them, don't they? It does add that omnipresence that is extremely, extremely attractive. There's a line here I want to ask that, again, I just had a note, interesting lines. I just wanted to ask what you meant by it. She'll break tradition, stand on ceremony, but you'll misunderstand every word that she says or that she says. What did you mean by that? But you'll misunderstand every word that she says.
There's actually she say, which is a poetic license there to rhyme with one of the previous.
Oh yeah, well that's why I'll read it again. How it's spelled. Then sorry, I just thought you might mislead it, but you'll misunderstand every word that you say. Yeah. So what does that line mean?
Well, again, when you're talking about a fictional, mythical, creative character, that it's kind of a conversation with someone that doesn't exist, and so therefore it's almost a concoction in your mind. So I guess you could probably maybe put that in the context of if you weren't completely sober, you're on a different level to other people, trying to communicate with a mythical creature, and therefore your conversation might be somewhat understandable to you for a short time, probably not understandable to other people. So it's maybe loosely based on that concept. So
okay,
yeah.
okay. I mean, it's sort of
going to another plane, perhaps. Yeah.
Because it rolls onto this sort of next group of stanza. And when your limbs feel adrenaline and sleep is more elusive than the day, don't waste the rapid eye movements. You spend hours wishing she were awake. So that's a drug reference, isn't it? When your limbs feel adrenaline and sleep is more elusive than the day. So that relates to what you said just before.
Well, it does, but I don't think that was particularly plucked from drugs. The limbs feel adrenaline. Sometimes I get that from, I forget what the terminology is, but I can get that when I'm trying to sleep, and it probably has nothing to do with drugs. So that might have come from there more than anything else. And wishing she were awake is a significant line in the song because, and as you can see, it's going to get repeated a few times. This is basically trying to imagine being with this fantastic creature that's simultaneously destroying all of creativity, and you kind of wish that she was in existence and Yeah, and you're together, so be a big power couple.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, cool. No, again, now that I know that this is sort of like, the person's a fantasy, I can see that. I can see that more. So again, I sort of read it was like you're just sort of desiring to be with this person, but they're just not into you, But yeah, if they're not real, it's very hard for them to be into you, isn't it?
No, it's not that simple. No.
Yeah,
I can't be writing a song about every girl that's not into me. That's that's going to take a while.
Yeah, no, good point. Good point. We don't have that much time. Jake sort of said to me before, I don't want to go for too long, mate. It's like no one's going to want to listen to the whole thing for 2 hours. So yeah, if you wrote 2,000, I don't know, then maybe there's probably only 50 girls that aren't into you, Jake, in the entire world. Not not tens of thousands. So
sounds reasonable. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shout out to all of those 50.
Yeah.
They're probably the 50 that I want then.
Yeah, 100%. Of course, that's how it works. Die every night, reborn every day. Die every night, wishing she were awake. Die every night, wishing she were awake. So you can expand on that more if you want, but it's just got a nice poetic. It's got a nice sort of poetic way about it. So nice way to finish the song.
Yeah, die every night. Yeah, it's definitely, poetic, sort of bringing those lines together. But die every night is significant to me, and I can explain that in the context of thinking about death, effectively, the concept of death, and the fact that every time we go to sleep, and there's a whole bunch of hours that we can't account for. So to me, it's the equivalent of being dead. And also, if we die in our sleep, that's the last sleep that we ever have. And we don't know. We're not going to know that because there's no next day. So to me, being asleep is equivalent to death.
Yeah. And there's a little bit of conversation about that. Like I had a friend who said there's no, you're always conscious. And I was like, well, like when you die now, you just think it's actually, you're not, when you're asleep, it's kind of like being dead in a way. So I'd agree with you on that as well. So again, it's a nice poetic stanza that sounds really nice, but yeah, probably not. It's sometimes like when I talk to lyricists, they sometimes just throw in these nice poetic stanzas that might not be totally related to the rest of the song. You're throwing that line, wishing she were awake. But yeah, a little bit of a side quest on that to finish the song, just because it sounds really, really, really cool. Maybe.
Oh well, that doesn't hurt, does it?
No, I think it's good. Don't get me wrong.
I think what you just quoted there, I think what you quoted there is just basically almost the art of lyricism, because you've got a topic and maybe for example, if it's dealing with people or semi-autobiographical in some way, it can be either a real person or a loose concept like this, and you can write about that topic or concept or person, but then the art of the lyric is to not write the lyric in the same way that everyone's written about it a million times before, because there's been countless topics that have been repeated a million times in human history, and you have to find a way to write it in a more interesting way than other people, and to not effectively write it in a way that I would consider boring. And I think that's the art of being a good lyric writer, is to at least recognise when you're writing something that isn't all that interesting or all that different to anyone else. And if you can actually eliminate those lines and then adjust them and find different ways of saying them, you can take a concept or a topic that everyone's talked about before and turn it into something interesting. That's, I think, the art of it.
No, 100%, I agree with that. And you can say the same things with things like movies as well, isn't it? Like there's the action movie, the hero goes on or seeks revenge. And there's every now and again you get a movie that's completely original, but in general, most movies also follow a certain similar path, don't they? But what makes the great movies, because they've got the great camaraderie or the chemistry between the actors or the twist or whatever. So yeah, I can definitely agree with you on that one. And like, I mean, how many songs are there about love? There's about 1 billion songs about love, but the ones that are that resonate with people is because the lyrics are written so beautifully, aren't they? And they catch you and grab you on the heartstrings. So yes, and again, the
Well, it's also just like the concept of rock music. Sorry, with this delay, it's sometimes easy to butt in, but the concept of rock music is, I mean, for example, rock music has already been around for 60, 70 years or whatever you want to call it. So it's very difficult to reinvent the wheel all the time. And, you and I, we actually enjoy similar quirky movies. Like one of our favourites is Being John Malkovich. Now, these are movies that are extremely unique and pretty rare. Going into the portal of John Malkovich's mind, that takes a lot of inspiration and probably some substances to write that stuff.
Yeah, no, I agree. And so this is a question though for you then. The song's got a great title, She Is Art. Do you know if there's any other songs called She Is Art? Because if you've come up with that, if you're the first person to come up with that title, I'll give yourself a pat on the back. That's exactly what we're talking about, coming up with expressing something, expressing the beauty of a woman, what's been expressed in billions of songs, but never has it ever been said in that way before?
It's certainly possible, but I do try to go in and check if obvious names have been taken. Sometimes you're just going to use a song title that clearly would have been featured somewhere else, but I do like to check, and if there is many out there, there's if there is any, it's certainly not many, but there's probably, I think there's I might have seen a podcast or something like that as opposed to a song, so there's certainly not many of them out there, so that's good.
Yeah, well, there we go. Yeah, that is good. We'll probably find that out after this. Someone's going to Google it, or you or me. But yeah, it's a great song title, and in the context of the song, it fits perfectly. Well, that sort of wraps that one up. I mean, do you have any closing comments, or move on to the next one?
No, I think that's good. Let's not bore the audience.
Okay, all right, no worries. Okay, so the last song we're going to do is Potion. So there's probably a song out there previously written called Potion again, but that's fine. I've been getting all these wrong. I don't get most of them. I get somewhat right. But I haven't really been. But there's no right.
But it's not right. It's not about right or wrong.
I know it's not about right or wrong.
It's not supposed to be about getting them right or wrong.
No. Yeah. No, but I do like to hang my hat a little bit on the fact that I sort of got a gist of what the singer's singing about. But I don't like make a point. Like I don't feel like I've fucked up if I haven't got it right, and no one gets angry at me if I get it wrong. And everyone always says, "Oh, it's about the interpretation anyway." But like I like to do this because it's like, well, no, hang on, what is this exactly about? So that's why I sort of like to try and give it a go. But it's kind of like a game. I find it's like a game for me in a sense, not so much showing how much I know about.
All right,
music.
I'm now gonna mark you on I'm gonna mark you on how right or wrong you are on this one. Let's go.
Yeah. So like this song's called Potion. I'm going to read it and then I'm going to say, look, this song has to be about this, and I'm probably going to get it totally wrong, but I'm going to do it anyway. So here we go. The song's called Potion. Breathe, inhale, inhale, breathe. Corruption and depravity. Never been in danger of overdosing on sobriety. Questioning the laws of gravity. Expressing your love eternally. Deceive, defile, defile, deceive. Comatose, bleeding internally. So I'll just throw it out there after the big preempting. Is this song about ecstasy pills? Because to me it just sounds like a total ode to ecstasy pills.
Does it?
It does. It does.
I think.
Or did you write it to sound like ecstasy pills, and then but it's actually about something else, but you've written it in that way so people get it wrong?
I think this was written in a period where I was certainly taking some. There were some good days in Sydney in my 20s. But I wouldn't say it's about them, no. I think the chorus is probably more impactful for what it's really about, as opposed to that where there is probably some of that element of what you were talking about earlier about constructing sentences that sound good, that aren't necessarily extremely zeroed in on a particular topic, but the chorus is more about a particular topic. The verses are more about capturing the feeling of the times, maybe being in some clubs and stuff in Sydney, possibly by myself. And this led, and certainly at the end of the song, the final stanza, as you call them, that would be more zeroed in as well. Maybe it's just the opening lines are a little bit looser and the other ones are a bit more zeroed in.
Okay, cool. So hang on, here we go. We're painting a bit of a picture. You sort of moved, you grew up in Melbourne, your mum, but then you move up to Sydney in your early 20s. So it's sort of like, lots of people do it as soon as they finish school, off to a different city or a different town they go, and they've got their first taste of sort of independence from, mum and dad and stuff. So, looking at that line, corruption and depravity, never been in danger of overdosing on sobriety. So again, it's maybe I was taking it a bit literally, but it's just about I'm
definitely
free. I can get drunk, I'll get high, I'll do whatever I want to do and get a bit loose. But that's it's more about that nightlife and being free and to do that.
Yeah. So in that sense, it is about a topic. It's not like the actual taking of an ecstasy pill. But I think never been in danger of overdosing on sobriety is one of my favourite lines that I've ever written, and it's just it's actually a good one to think about if you actually sit there and just analyse that line within itself, because it just, to me, that's a line that works on multiple levels. So I certainly wasn't sober. When I was in Sydney, I was actually quite sick at the same time still. So what I was I was either in pain and sick, or I was high and extremely in your face and extremely high. So that was my two modes at that point in time, which leads into the rest of the song.
Yeah, so because that's it. There are lines that are very, a bit outrageous and stuff. But then, then there's that line: deceive, defile, deceive, comatose, bleeding internally. So it does have that roller coaster feel, doesn't it? Of the highest of highs, but then also the lowest of lows, and yeah.
That's it. I think that's a combination of being physically sick, and taking substances to assist that. And honestly, I can say that it was a lot of relief to be on various substances, because when you're sick at other times and then you're actually taking stuff that makes you feel much better, regardless of whether it's a medicine that's going to, increase your well-being in the future. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people obviously taking substances to deal with their pain, both emotionally and physically. So it's not a new concept, clearly. No, but I'm saying that I was enjoying those times that I was taking them because I was in pain, a lot of pain at the rest of the time.
Yeah, look, I always try and throw a little bit of psychological principles into this. I try not to force them in too much, because I try and let the conversation flow. But when you're sort of doing like drug and alcohol counselling, I'm not saying you need it by any stretch, but just as a general concept, you don't counsel someone by saying, like, especially with things like drug and alcohol or even gambling, like, like you shouldn't be doing it. You shouldn't be doing it. There's no point in lecturing it. Like, why do you do that? Like, it's actually you ask people, like what are the good things about it? Because I'm in physical pain, so I take this, I drink or drug or whatever, so I don't have the pain, So it's like, oh, great. How can you argue with that? That makes perfect sense, doesn't it? They're getting some relief from the pain, physical pain, or even like some mental anguish pain. But then you always have to flick it on the other side and be like, all right, well, what are the problems with this though? Well, yeah, even though I'm not even though I'm not in physical pain, when I'm on it, the next 3 days, the pain is twice or 3 times as worse. So then you sort of say to them, well, yeah, that makes perfect sense too. So taking, the good and the bad and weighing it up, what's sort of the overall best way to look at this situation, and you do it to try and frame it in a way. Well, even though the goods are good, the bads are actually probably bad. So that's how you help people find motivation to stop doing the things that are harming them. So yeah, there we go. A little bit of the motivation.
It's like anything, isn't it? Like you can get away with stuff as long as it's not excessive. I mean, some people could take drugs and alcohol for their entire life, and even if they go quite hard, they can still basically keep it in check. And I've never had any issues with those things, even though I've partied hard at times and stuff, but never. Those particular things have never been something, because you've got to physically recover from them. So I was never able to keep going back to the well. I don't even like alcohol all that much anyway, so that's never been an issue.
Yep, and I can vouch for Jake there. He's not just saying that to in case someone's listening. He definitely doesn't drink much. But yes, I will vouch for him. He doesn't really drink much at all. All right, so I don't know if this is the chorus or not, but this is the title of the song. Potion is in this stanza. So, I am potion of unbridled potency. You will choke upon an overdose of me. So the context of the word potion in this song, maybe, and this is the chorus. So the chorus is usually the hook that people want to put their vocals, a bit of work into. I am a potion of unbridled potency. You'll choke upon an overdose of me. So, that chorus, you expand on that one a little bit for us?
Yeah, I touched on this a little bit earlier in regards to being a person who is either physically sick and, I guess, depressed for not just that reason, probably some other reasons, or being extremely high and in your face. So now I am this, in your face concoction of, a massive personality, a complete joker, and, relentlessly bombarding people with my conversation and my jokes and my comedy on drugs. And, so it's a very powerful concoction. And, it's a critique of myself at that age. It's just the way it was. And I've always been probably a polarising character, regardless of any substances or anything like that. I tend to go to conversations that are more than small talk pretty quickly, because I don't really, maybe too quickly. You meet someone, they maybe want a little bit of small talk, foreplay, conversational foreplay, but sometimes I skip that and people think that's too intense. That's too much intensity for them too quickly, and that's fine. But sometimes you just click with someone and you have a conversation that's interesting quite quickly. I think generally after about 5 minutes, you can determine if you're going to have a good conversation with someone that's a little bit more interesting than the standard.
That's why, I always like to do a little bit of a thing at the start about asking people about their a little bit of their history and stuff. And it's good that you spoke about doing the comedy and so on. And I just, I've sort of seen a couple of things on Robin Williams recently. He was a bit of an intense, in-your-face sort of character, but, he was he had a massive, massive drug problem that wasn't really known to the greater public. I'm sure the people close to him all knew about it. But, you sort of spoke a little bit about when you were a bit younger, and admittedly you did get sick and stuff, but you weren't really feeling you had the confidence to get good enough to be a singer. But then up here in Sydney, you started doing the stand-up comedy, and obviously you're dabbling with a few different things. Did that sort of, the confidence from, substances and stuff, and did that sort of go hand in hand with the comedy? I mean, you're a funny guy, but to make that decision, I'm going to sort of go hard at this. Was that all sort of wrapped into one?
Yeah, I reckon you got that one pretty right. It was certainly a attempt to get myself out of my shell, and I would still consider myself an introvert over an extrovert by and large. So yeah, I mean, you effectively nailed that one, Zane. That's pretty accurate.
I got one thing right. There we go. That's good. Okay, so
Yeah.
oh,
You're rolling now.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. The last part of the song, you might have kind of answered it with the last song, but I just want to read it out because again, it's some nice lyrical prose with chemically enhanced visions of romance. Let me take your hand into fantasy land. Shall we dance? Let's kill romance. Shall we dance? Let's kill romance. So the first bit of that I'm not so interested in because we kind of answered it, but shall we dance? Let's kill romance. Is that another sort of version of, just because it just sounds really nice as the lyrical prose and it's well put. It's a tiny bit of a side quest from the main theme of the song. But that line, "Let's kill romance." That's the line I want to ask you about specifically.
No, I actually really can zero in on the memory of writing those lines, or maybe not necessarily writing them that night, but the vivid memory of being in a club in King's Cross by myself and being not sober. But, I think from what I can gather, I was in a good enough headspace and watching some dancing, probably females mostly were dancing. Guys tend to not dance all that. They tend to be fairly conservative when they dance. Actually, no, well, that's actually not true. Females can be very conservative when they dance as well and not necessarily express themselves that much. But I was watching them dance, whoever they were, and I just thought to myself, it's not classy, it's not romantic, it's, like part of the mating ritual, people going to clubs and bars and doing this kind of this insular dancing that's sort of very, very conservative. And my dancing style, unfortunately, has tended to be very hard and aggressive and like a rave kind of dancer. So I'd go pretty hard. So probably could look visually interesting, but maybe wouldn't necessarily attract females because it was so intimidating. So but then watching other people dance, and thinking this is not sexy. Yeah, that's good. This is not sexy. This is not romantic. This is like, and everyone's on substances and it's just not. And that's really where that comes from. We are killing romance. This is not anything. This is just people fried and just doing whatever it is they do. And that's pretty much
and horny.
Shitloads of venues. And you don't have to be, yes, exactly. And you don't have to be fried to make this spectacle look as bad as that either.
Well, yeah, not everyone can be a Fred Astaire. And look, I would agree with you too. There are a percentage of men that can dance, but yeah, there's like high, horny dudes at King's Cross. Generally don't come across as the most Fred. They don't have the most Fred Astaire style grace about them, do they? No. So I can, again, visual imagery. I love a bit of visual imagery, and I can actually. It's almost like I'm sitting there with you right now, having a look at that, and I can just see you just going, all right, bang, smashing the bourbon down and getting up and just like giving it a rev. Yeah, it's great image I got in my head right now. Thanks for that. Wonderful.
It's all right.
Yeah, look at it. And I had a just to sort of note, even though again I wasn't really 100% sure what this song's about, but there's a bit of like reveling in the debauchery in your lyrics, sort of definitely in this song, but maybe there's a little bit of a vein of that in some of the other stuff. Is that anything anyone's ever sort of said to you, or do you sort of to hear that reveling in the debauchery? Is that something you think you can sort of, identify with?
That's a pretty good lyric in itself, there, Zane. Reveling in the debauchery. You can use that one.
Thank you.
I don't think that's inaccurate either. I think I don't regret any of those times because. We've all got to have varying different experiences, and some people are closed-minded to that kind of stuff. And I've had many a discussion where people look down on alcohol. Sorry, they take or drink a lot of alcohol, but look down on alternatives to that because it's not legal. And then I'll have many discussions about how MDMA should have been legal and is a much safer and much more fun drug that people hug each other with. And if we were having clubs and bars that people were all on MDMA, proper MDMA that was well documented and supervised, as opposed to alcohol, we'd have a lot safer environment because everyone would just be happy, except when they come down, of course. So yeah,
yeah, and the Crohn's kicks in, and you're in a bad way. Okay, Look,
well, hopefully you're at home for that.
yeah, true. Like you're not on some party boat that's stuck on the pier because of COVID. Yeah, okay.
You can't get off.
Yeah, you can't get off. Okay, cool. So look, a little bit, or but they're all a bit. No, they're not all a bit. The track 1 and track 3 that we've gone over, Potion, Lockdown Lovers, they're quite autobiographical. The second one's a little bit, more of a fantasy piece, but that's all right. That's the last song. I do a little bit of a sort of closing as we get to the end, a little bit of a summary, and I even try and get that a bit organised before I start, but I did miss the point of a few of these songs, admittedly. So I'm sort of sitting here, sort of going, oh yeah, that's all super interesting, but like, where does that sort of leave me as a bit of a summary? But I did make this sort of point. You like a little bit of social commentary. You like I don't know if this is the comedian, that bit of you that's comedy and social commentary go hand in hand. Very much so. So maybe that's just sort of, you've always been a bit like that. But like the social commentary, I sort of take it more on the background of a bit more of the underground, and maybe this note was made after I read the lyrics of Potion, but about the sex, drugs, rock and roll, the underground, the music that you play and the music that you like the sort of like the pop stuff, but the music that you play is that post-punk sort of sound that's got a little bit of a darker underground edge to it. Do you sort of see yourself as a little bit of like a poet for the underground, a poet for the darker underground? Because that's the impression I'm getting from it. Like maybe that's like, you might be a bit too humble or modest to say that's who you are, but is that the sort of the character you're trying to portray, or that side of you that you're trying to get across in your lyrics, if that's answerable, that question?
I'll try. Yeah. Well, I think probably the most significant response I can make to that is that part of the reason I came back to music was because I was confident in being able to write some decent lyrics which have some kind of insight to them. And the one song that we cut out to review, potentially to not bore the audience, was Plastic, which is a much more of a societal comedic commentary. To me, lyrics are extremely important. And because I don't consider myself a naturally gifted singer, or even one that's worked on his craft really hard until more recent years, and even then I wouldn't say that I'm, again, I'm not trying to be a professional musician, so I'm not going to just do it day and night, work on my craft. So so lyrics become extremely important because I'm trying to tell a story and sell a story. So therefore, if I'm not writing something interesting and don't have anything interesting to say, then I'm not just going to get away with it just because I'm such a brilliant singer. So those lyrics need to be extremely interesting to me, and not as discussed earlier, not the same as what's been said before. So it is obviously a embracement of underground philosophies and antics, and sex, drugs and rock and roll is a very mainstream, obviously, philosophy. But I'm not against it.
Yeah, if you just say sex, drugs, and rock and roll, you just go straight to bloody, like Kiss and Guns N' Roses. So that's the mainstream of it. But I suppose it's the way, you have a way of putting it that's, probably addresses a little bit more of the underground tones of it a little bit more. It does seem to be like we don't play the band's music when we do this because I just don't want to worry about sort of licensing issues and all that. And but the lyrics and the picture you paint does actually suit your music quite well. So like, is it a bit of a chicken or the egg thing where what came first, the music or the lyrics and the music, or they just live together, don't they? I suppose, and to a certain degree, like when you look at if it's just Joy Division might be that archetypal sort of post-punk sound. It's got that raw underground sound to it, but the lyrics have also had this sort of darker tone to it. So it is kind of a question what I'm asking you. Like that your attraction to the music you make versus the lyrics you make, a bit of a chicken and egg thing, or they just come together. It's just naturally how it unfolds, or if you can get that question.
Yeah, felt more like a statement than a question.
Yeah, well, it kind of was.
Yes. I mean, obviously, you want to accompany your lyrics with the music that you kind of enjoy. So that's that post-punk era. Again, like Joy Division or Public Image Limited. In the current day, it's like Idols. So. And then, starting out initially writing that stuff myself, but then obviously getting people to work on it with you, and then getting new people to work on it with you, and then eventually molding that sound that just sounds appealing to your ear, and then obviously getting the band members that I've got now. And, we've got this sound that I think I try to describe Lockdown Lovers, or have described it as, I think, modern carnival retro punk music, which is relatively unique, I think, at least in its description. And, it's got that element of the harking back to post-punk, but I still think it's got, a modern take. And it is very difficult to make things that are, somewhat unique today, as we discussed. But I think there's enough different elements in the band coming from enough different directions that make it unique enough, both, Lockdown Lovers and Potion being the first two songs with these 5 band members. I think we've got our own sound, and it's a little bit hard to put your finger on. I know the producer of these 2 songs couldn't really describe it or necessarily name other bands that it sounds like, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah. The only other thing though too that I think is worth sort of noting, and I'm not a bit surprised myself now why I didn't sort of make a note of this. You did get really sick when you were young. In the time of the life when people are 20 years old, you're supposed to be living your best life and be carefree and everything, and you nearly died. And like again, I don't want to sort of probably get too much in your personal life now, but I know you even
not
recently
nearly died. I don't think.
No. Well, oh, okay. Well, but maybe you did die. But like you've spent.
Well, I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, okay. Like maybe not nearly died isn't probably the right, but you were actually very, very sick. It wasn't like I had to get your appendix out or something, So there is a little sense of nihilism, maybe. I don't know if that's the exact right word about it, but do you think that period of your life? I mean, obviously we're talking about Potion. You spoke very clearly about it, but you think that's and. You did say before you could shut your eyes any night and not wake up and it's all over. Do you think that that's sort of right? Like, there's a vein of that sort of? I keep wanting to say nihilism. I'm not 100% if nihilism is the right word, but is there a bit of a vein of that running through your lyrics as well? You think?
Well, it's interesting that you use the word nihilism because I had a song that I wrote 20 years ago, which it's kind of getting rewritten now, and its working title for a long time was Nihilist, and clearly written when I was very sick, and I was chronically sick in my 20s until I had a surgery to cut out huge sections of my small bowel, I believe it is, and to make everyone feel warm and fuzzy out there, and had a colostomy bag for 6 months when I was 25 years of age. So that was fun. And but that surgery gave me 5 years of relief, and then it came back for a while. But the last 10 years, 10 to 15, I've been not as bad, anywhere near as bad as I was when I was younger. But yeah, when I was younger, so as I mentioned when we were discussing potion, I was physically sick and clearly struggling emotionally with it. And, when you don't have your health, you don't have much, that's for sure. So, I think even when I was younger, though, my lyrics were dissected once by someone, and they said, look, it is dark, but there is like still hints of hope in there. And I think that's pretty much how they function. There's darkness, but it's not just point blank bleak. So yeah. There is a song that was called Nihilist and could still be called that, and I think it's going to see the light of day at some point.
Yeah, so the last thing I ask people this too is, maybe the songwriting future, what you think your lyrics, is this still the same sort of vein? You're bringing back a song, Nihilist. What's a question in itself, like, your decision to bring that back because it's just a great song, you just always loved it, or you're thinking it's relevant to you now. But the general question is, some songs moving forwards, maybe some songs that are going to get released over time. I know you recorded some songs recently. Is there, maybe a bit about some of the lyrics you got coming out or you're working on moving forward?
Yeah, the next song that we're going to work on, which certainly fits into your assessment of dark comedic commentary, is a song that the chorus, the song's it's going to be called Just Smart Enough, and the chorus is just smart enough to be fucking dangerous. And I like that line, and I'd like to use it as a catch cry because I think it's appropriate for quite a few people. They think they're smarter than what they actually are, and it can cause a lot of problems. So that's one that we're going to be working on next. So yes, it is in that vein. Yeah,
and that can also be taken very broad, from like global politics to just the dude that arsehole down the road, isn't it? Yeah, okay. Alrighty, Jake. This has been super, super interesting. Some really good stuff. Good. Again, really glad to go through those because, again, I don't always get it right, and I was a little bit off the mark with some of them. But hearing you talk about them, it's actually, I like your interpretation of your lyrics more than I like my interpretation, and that sounds a very odd thing to say, but I do say that genuinely. So this is sort of, we've reached the end. Have a nihilistically wonderful time, but always use the last bit of the podcast for like anything you need to plug, any gigs, any music. I know you got, we've spoken about some music coming out, but I'm going to hand it over to you to sort of do the plug for anything you want to promote in this last few minutes. So over to you.
Sweet, thanks for having me, and I hope that at least a handful of people and more get to watch this show and some other shows. Lockdown Lovers is released Friday, June 13, and we're playing a gig on the 14th at Cactus Room in Thornbury, and that's effectively what's coming up for us in the short term. So I think that's pretty much about it.
Yeah, I'll give you a chat. I said hand it over to you, but you have recorded was it like 4 or 5 songs? You have to give me the exact number. I can't remember off the top of my head, but there will be hopefully over the coming years some more single release drops, right, coming for people to keep an eye out for, right? That's the case as well, isn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, Potion will definitely come out in a month or two after that. That's for sure. And there was 2 others recorded in that session. But whether they'll be released as singles, so to speak, I don't know. And it's not an easy industry to get people's attention, and we're competing with so many different forms of entertainment and a shitload of music, and people's diminished either attention spans or finances because everything's so expensive these days. So for me, it's a little bit of just see how you go and to not get too affected about, a massive long range plan or worrying about, how well things are going to be received or how many people are going to listen to them. But I don't want to release things into the ether either. So it's a bit of a balancing act, I think, because most musicians, they don't want to do promotion. They don't want to do all this other shit. We just want to be musicians. But if you don't do any of the other stuff, no one's going to hear it. And is that what you want to do? Release stuff and no one hears it? So you actually do have to do that other stuff. And that's not an easy task. So we just take each single as it comes, like a footballer responding to a question with a cliche.